The first thing Mia said was, "Please tell me you have your keys." The second thing I said was, "Please tell me you have yours." That was how we found ourselves locked out of my apartment building at 12:17 in the morning, standing on the front steps with a dead lobby keypad, one forgotten backpack, and exactly zero backup plans. Mia stared at me. I stared at her. Then she laughed once, sharp and disbelieving. "That is so embarrassingly on brand for you." "That's unfair," I said. "You're equally locked out." "Yes, but I'm only here because you said, 'Come upstairs for 10 minutes. I need a second opinion on whether my couch looks sad.'" In my defense, it does look sad. In your defense, you are an idiot. That was Mia, warm when it mattered, ruthless when it was fun, usually both in the same sentence. We'd been best friends for almost 7 years, which is long enough to know the exact tone someone uses when they're pretending not to be upset, the exact takeout order they'll claim they don't want and then steal half of, and the exact expression they make right before saying something that ruins your whole evening in the best possible way. We met in college because she took my umbrella. Not by accident. It had started raining outside the student center, and while I was digging through my bag for headphones, she stepped under my umbrella like we had already agreed to it and said, "You looked like someone who wouldn't say no." I told her that was manipulative. She told me it was efficient. That should have been the end of it. Instead, we got coffee, missed a lecture, and somehow never really stopped talking after that. By the time we graduated, Mia had become the person I called first for everything. Good news, bad news, stupid news, the kind of pointless observation that would mean nothing to anyone else. She was just built into my life. Not loudly, not dramatically, just completely. Which is why everyone always assumed we were together. Friends asked, coworkers hinted. My sister gave up subtlety and asked Mia at Thanksgiving if she planned on keeping me or releasing me back into the wild. Mia nearly choked on her drink. I laughed like it was ridiculous. She laughed too, but not quite as easily. That should have told me something. A lot of things should have. Like the fact that she never stayed interested in anyone who seemed annoyed by how much time we spent together. Or the fact that every time I dated someone new, Mia got quieter, not mean, and just less like herself around me. I noticed it. I just filed it under things I didn't understand well enough to examine, which apparently had become a pattern. That night, we'd been coming back from a late movie showing neither of us even liked. Mia had spent the entire walk back making fun of the ending, and I'd been defending it just to keep the argument alive because listening to her talk was still somehow the best part of most nights. We reached my building. I patted my coat pocket. Nothing. Then I remembered my keys were in the backpack I'd left in my office. Mia checked her bag and groaned. "Mine are in your kitchen." Right. Because earlier that night she'd stopped by after work, dropped her bag on my counter, and borrowed my scarf. Then we left in a rush because we were already late. So now we had no keys, no entry code, and a super who definitely wasn't answering his phone after midnight. I tried calling him anyway, straight to voicemail. Mia sat down on the top step and pulled her coat tighter. "Amazing, truly, we've peaked." I'm thinking, "You're always thinking right before things get worse." I sat beside her. The street was mostly empty, washed silver by the streetlights. Somewhere in the distance, a siren passed and faded. The city had that strange midnight quiet where everything feels paused, like even the buildings are tired. "Maybe one of my neighbors is awake?" I said. Mia looked at the dark windows above us. "At 12:17? It's New York. People have problems. So do we, apparently." I smiled despite myself. She did too, but only for a second. Then the smile faded and she looked down at her hands. "You cold?" I asked. "I'm a little." I took off my jacket without thinking and held it out. Mia looked at it, then at me. "And what are you gonna do?" "Be brave." "You're wearing a thin sweater." "I have emotional resilience." "You have poor circulation." Still, she took the jacket. That should have been an ordinary moment. It wasn't. Maybe because midnight makes everything feel more honest. Maybe because she looked too good drowning in my jacket on my apartment steps while neither of us had anywhere else to be. For a minute, we just sat there. No joke, no easy conversation. Just the faint hum of the city and the sound of her breathing beside me. Then Mia said, very quietly, "You know what's annoying? Everything? You. That feels broad." She turned toward me. You have no idea what it's like to be locked out at midnight with the one person you've been trying very hard not to want in exactly this way." I stopped breathing for half a second. "Mia?" She looked away immediately, like saying my name back might make it worse. "No, it's fine. Forget it." It did not sound fine. She laughed once, soft and frustrated. "Yeah, well, that's kind of the problem." The whole night seemed to tilt. Every memory I had neatly stored under friendship started shifting at once. The way she always found reasons to stay longer. The way she watched me when she thought I wouldn't notice. The way every almost relationship in my life had somehow ended with me back on a couch, phone in hand, talking to Mia like she was still the real center of everything. I turned toward her slowly. "What do you mean, as in exactly this way?" She pressed her lips together. Then she looked at me with a nervousness I had almost never seen on her before, which scared me more than if she'd started yelling. "I mean," she said softly, "I've spent months trying not to think about what would happen if we ever got stuck in one of those moments where it was just us and nowhere to go." My throat went dry. "Mia," she tucked her hands into the sleeves of my jacket and let out one shaky breath. Then she finally met my eyes, and in a voice just above a whisper, she said, "I think I'm done pretending I don't want more than this." For a second, I honestly thought I had imagined it. Not because Mia wasn't brave enough to say something like that, because I wasn't ready for how much I wanted her to mean it. She must have seen something change in my face, because the confidence she'd forced herself into started slipping almost immediately. "Okay," she said, looking away. That sounded bigger out loud. It was honest. That does not make it less terrifying. "No," I said softly. "Probably not." The street stayed quiet around us. A cab rolled past slow and yellow under the lights, then disappeared at the corner. Somewhere above us, a window shut. The whole city kept moving like nothing important was happening, even though my whole life had just tilted on a set of cold apartment steps. Mia pulled my jacket tighter around herself and stared at the sidewalk. You don't have to say anything right away." That snapped me out of it. "I do, actually." She looked back at me then. Really looked. Not amused, not teasing. Just waiting. And suddenly I hated how many chances I'd had to understand this sooner. All the times she'd stayed longer than she needed to. All the times she'd gone quiet when I talked about someone else. All the times people joked about us and I laughed, because joking was easier than asking myself why the idea never felt ridiculous at all. I rubbed a hand over the back of my neck and let out a breath. "I think the worst part is, I'm not shocked you said it." Mia blinked. "That is a deeply confusing response." "I know." "No, seriously, what does that mean?" "It means," I said, turning toward her fully, "some part of me has known there was something different here for a long time. I just kept calling it friendship because that was safer." Her expression changed just slightly. Softer now, more careful. "Safer for who?" "For me," I admitted, "because if I was wrong, I lost you." That landed. I could see it. The tension in her face loosened a little, like I'd finally said something she recognized as real. "You wouldn't have lost me," she said quietly. "I know that now." For a second, neither of us moved. Then she asked, "So, when I said I wanted more than this?" I gave a short laugh under my breath. "My first thought was that you were about 6 months late." That got a real reaction out of her. Her brows lifted. "Excuse me?" I smiled for the first time since she'd said it. Because if we're being honest, Mia, I've been jealous of people who got your attention for a while. I just never let myself finish the thought. Her whole face changed at that. Not dramatically, just enough to make my chest tighten. "How long is a while?" she asked. I looked out at the street for a second, then back at her. "Since that night you fell asleep on my couch and I spent 20 minutes pretending it was totally normal that seeing you there felt more right than anything had in months." Mia stared at me. "That was in February." "Yeah, it is November." "I am aware." She laughed then, soft and disbelieving, and covered part of her face with the sleeve of my jacket. That is humiliating for you. It's not my best work. No, she said, it really isn't. But she was smiling now, and once she was smiling, it all got easier, not less important, just easier to tell the truth. I looked at her and said, "You're the first person I want to text when something happens. You're the person I look for in every room. And every time I've tried to care about someone else, it's felt thinner than whatever this is." Mia's eyes held mine. "And what is this?" she asked, very softly. I smiled a little. "I think it's the reason getting locked out with you feels less like a disaster and more like the most honest thing that's happened to me all year." That made her laugh again, quieter this time. Then she shook her head. "You know what's annoying?" "What?" "That is an unfairly good answer." I panic well. "That's new." We sat there for another second, close enough now that the space between us felt deliberate. Mia looked down at my hands, then back at my face. "So, what happens now?" I glanced at the dark front door of the building. "Well, ideally, one of my neighbors develops a conscience." She smiled. "And after that?" I turned toward her fully. "After that, I stop pretending you're just my best friend in the way I've always said it." Something in her expression opened completely then. Like she'd been bracing for disappointment for so long, she'd forgotten what relief felt like. I lifted a hand slow enough to give her time. She didn't move away. So I touched her cheek, cold from the night, and said, "For the record, if I'm stuck anywhere at midnight, I'm pretty glad it's with you." Mia's voice came out almost weightless. "Good." Then I kissed her. It was soft at first, careful. The kind of kiss that doesn't feel reckless at all once it happens, because some part of you has been moving toward it for far too long. When we pulled apart, she stayed close, just smiling in that stunned, quiet way people do when something they wanted finally becomes real. "Well," she whispered, "that was worth forgetting my keys." I laughed softly. "You forgot them on purpose." She gave me a look. "Don't ruin this for me." Fair. A minute later, the front door finally buzzed open because my upstairs neighbor came back carrying takeout and took one look at us sitting there and said, "Wow, about time." Mia buried her face in my shoulder. I'd laughed so hard I nearly fell off the step. The best part was, once we got upstairs, nothing felt awkward. Not forced, not strange. She dropped her bag on my kitchen counter like she always did. I handed her a glass of water like I always did. The only difference was that now, when she looked at me across my apartment, there was nothing hidden in it anymore. A week later, we were still walking home together, still stealing each other's food, still arguing over movies. The difference was that now she reached for my hand without thinking, and I stopped acting like the best part of my day was just a habit. It wasn't. It was her. It had probably been her for a long time. So tell me, if you were in my place, what would you have done when your best friend finally said it? Leave it in the comments. And if you like this story, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.